You hear the term parental involvement all the time, right? It's talked about like it's this magic bullet in education. But what if the way we think about it is, well, all wrong? What if the very definition we use is actually creating more barriers than it's breaking down? Today, we're going to dig into what parental involvement really means and why getting that definition right is absolutely critical for every single student.
Okay, so when I say parental involvement, what pops into your head? Bake sales, chaperoning a field trip, that parent-teacher conference you're maybe not looking forward to? Yeah, those are the classics. But the real definition is so much more complex. And, it turns out, it has huge consequences for students, for teachers, and for entire communities.
And this is where it gets really interesting. A lot of the research, particularly some fascinating work out of Turkey, points to a huge problem. The whole idea of parental involvement, for many places around the world, is basically a Western import. And you know what happens when you try to plant a tree in the wrong soil, right? It doesn't always take. It can lead to a ton of confusion and some really challenging situations.
And look, this isn't just about semantics or some academic debate. The way we define this one phrase has a massive, real-world impact on whether our schools are truly fair and effective for everyone who walks through their doors.
Think about it. The definition a school uses can literally be a welcome mat for some families and a brick wall for others. When you have a school-centric view, where the school makes all the rules and sets all the terms, you're automatically giving a leg up to parents who already know the system, who have the time, the resources, the right kind of cultural capital. And for everyone else, it can completely shut down the chance for a real partnership. Okay, so the research really breaks this down into 3 different ways of looking at it, 3 models. Let's dive into the first one, the one most of us are probably familiar with, the task-driven approach. Or, as I like to call it, the checklist.
So this model is exactly what it sounds like. It sees parental involvement as a list of jobs. The school has its goals, and parents are basically handed a list of tasks they need to do to help the school meet those goals. It's very much a one-way street. The school tells you what to do, and you're expected to do it.
The main attribute here? It's all on the parent. The responsibility is theirs. And what does it take for a parent to check all these boxes? Well, it depends on things like their socioeconomic status, how much free time they have, their own education level. The goal is simple enough: better grades, better attendance. But do you see how much of the weight is put on the parent's individual circumstances?
And this quote really sums up the whole philosophy perfectly. Parents' supportive role in children's education does not and should not end. The message is clear. The focus, the burden, it's all on the parent.
All right, so that's the checklist model. Pretty straightforward, right? But things start to evolve. Let's move on to the second model, which is all about building a relationship. It's the relational approach, or the partnership.
And right away, you can see this is a huge leap forward. The relational model is so much more than a to-do list. It's about framing involvement as a genuine partnership. We're talking shared responsibility, a real two-way commitment, and actual collaboration. The idea is that both the family and the school bring something valuable to the table.
And check out the difference here. What's needed for this to work? A welcoming school culture. Lots of different ways to communicate. All of a sudden, it's not just on the parent anymore. The school has a responsibility to create an environment where that partnership can even happen. And the goal gets bigger too. It's not just about one kid's grades. It's about making the entire school and community stronger.
This quote just hits the nail on the head. Teachers need to be convinced and trained to recognize parents as equal partners, not as interveners. That is a massive mental shift, isn't it? Moving from seeing parents as outsiders who intervene to seeing them as equal partners in their child's education.
Okay, so we've gone from a checklist to a partnership. But what if we could push the idea even further? That brings us to the third model, the critical approach. Let's call this one the advocate.
Now, this model completely changes the game. It reframes the entire conversation. We're not just talking about helping a single student get a better grade anymore. This is about equity. It's about social justice. This approach challenges schools to take a hard look in the mirror and actively dismantle the systems and barriers that shut certain families out.
So with this model, the end game isn't just about test scores. It's about empowering families who've been pushed to the margins. It's about actually reducing those systemic gaps and inequalities. And it all has to start with the school itself admitting that these structural problems exist, and then actively working to create culturally responsive practices.
And let's be real, this kind of transformation doesn't just happen. It takes a strong, critical school leadership.
It takes leaders who are brave enough to challenge the way things have always been done, to really dig in and tackle those deep systemic problems head on.
Okay, so we've got the checklist, the partnership, and the advocate. 3 very different ways of thinking. Let's pull it all together now and really look at the big picture to see why these definitions are so incredibly important.
You know, when you strip it all down, it comes down to the question you're asking. The task-driven model, the checklist, it asks, are parents doing their job? But the critical model, the advocate, asks a totally different question. Is the school doing its job to remove barriers for parents? That shift in focus from parent compliance to institutional responsibility, that changes everything.
And this table just lays it all out so clearly. You can see the whole evolution. We start with the parent being responsible for their kid's achievement. Then we move to a shared responsibility for building a strong community. And we end up at a place where the focus is on social justice and equity, with the goal of empowering every single family. It's an amazing progression, from a simple to-do list to a powerful engine for social change.
So, okay, what does this all mean on a Tuesday afternoon at your local elementary school? Why does it matter so much? Well, because when a school gets stuck in that first checklist model, it causes real harm. It automatically favors middle-class values and schedules. It pushes aside all the different, complex, and totally valid ways that diverse families support their kids. And ultimately, it makes a true, authentic partnership impossible for so many people in the community.
And that brings us right back to the beginning, to the most important question of all. I want you to think about your own community, the schools you know. When they use that phrase, parental involvement, what are they really talking about? Is it just a checklist of things to do? Is it a genuine partnership? Or is it a movement to build a fairer, more just education system for every single child? Because the answer to that question, well, that changes absolutely everything.